Hello and welcome, American Public University Systems student HCAD 520. We are in week 4 already, so let me first take the opportunity to welcome you to week 4. At the end of this week, you will be approximately at the halfway point. So, congratulations on all of the hard work. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of your discussion board postings and how you're able to show mastery of the topic and support your understanding by integrating quality sources, specifically sources from government and sources from peer review references. So, good job. Keep up the good work. We have a lot of hard work ahead of us in week 4 before we get to the midpoint of the course, but you are well on your way. So, thank you for all of your hard work. In week 4, we are going to look at torts and negligence. When we talk about torts, that's really a private discretion or a private harm that has been done between private citizens or between corporations and private citizens. And I'm saying that to compare and contrast the tort with a criminal law or procedure, where torts aren't criminal, they are private crimes. You can certainly go to jail for torts, but they aren't considered within the criminal realm of law. Often we see tort fessers, if you will, uh, being levied with huge fines and monetary fines and damages, and not necessarily court or not necessarily jail time, excuse me, but that is starting to change because of the severity of torts here in recent years. And then, of course, negligence. Negligence is really the basic. Uh, Foundation or criteria that we have for liability in our legal system. In other words, in the absence of any other law, regulation, statute, or any other binding regulations, negligence is the minimum requirement that we all share, and it is the minimum requirement for a lawsuit, for example, in the system. And we'll talk more about negligence not only in week 4, but through the rest of the course. So while you may not uh, have a specific law or statute or regulation that addresses a uh, legal violation, the analysis of negligence, again, in the absence of any other rules or regulations, negligence is the minimum foundation of liability here in our Anglo American law system. So, the objectives for week 2, you're going to examine the ethical values and principles that are inherent in healthcare. This would lead to your understanding of legal requirements for healthcare organizations, and you'll have an opportunity to analyze elements of tort law, malpractice, and risk management in healthcare. And then finally, you'll analyze what is the role of healthcare administrators and managers in preventing and managing legal and ethical incidents within healthcare organizations. And ideally, you'll develop an understanding of intentional torts that occur in healthcare. You'll understand the 4 essential elements that must be proven by the plaintiff to prevail in a negligence case, and understand the plaintiff's injuries must be caused by the defendant's breach of duty. And by the way, when we talk about uh, the four elements of negligence, our book talks about four elements, but if you look at other research, sometimes there's five elements out there. So, two of the elements will get merged together, which is the ability to prove that the plaintiff actually was a direct cause of the damages. Or excuse me, the defendant was the direct cause of the damages, and there were no intervening circumstances between the event and the alleged damage caused by the defendant. So don't get confused out there when you're doing your research on the World Wide Web. You may see some references that will refer to five elements of negligence instead of the four. And then, kind of finally, here, when we look at the overview of week four, you are going to examine the effects of tort reform in the United States. So, let's talk a little bit about the reading. You will read chapters 5 and 6 in the Law of Healthcare Administration. There's some additional reading, the impact of tort reform on defense of medicine, quality of care, and physician supply. It's actually a systematic review. I think you'll find that very helpful because it gives you a good bird's eye view of some of the dynamics that have gone on through healthcare over the last 20 years. It looks at studies that happened before healthcare reform, during healthcare reform, and now post healthcare reform. So, really good context there for you. There's another article, Where Have All the Cases Gone? The Strange Success of Tort Reform Revisited. I think you'll be fascinated by tort reform here in the United States. Often, I think people outside the United States look at the US as being a lawsuit happy nation, if you will. And who knows, maybe there's some truth to that, at least from their perspective. But the courts and the legal system has painstakingly gone through their own reform process to kind of limit some of those lawsuits that were so prevalent in the past, and to also do a really good job of clarifying the requirements of negligence and what exactly the criteria is for the for negligence, or really the burden of proof that the plaintiff has in order to prove a negligence case. And it's actually very high, despite only having 4 or 5 simple steps there. And then finally, a video regarding malpractice, healthcare cost, and tort reform. Really good lecture there, written lecture on tort reform and malpractice. So please make sure you're reading that. I thought it was fascinating because it goes back to Harambe's Code back in 1794. And for the West, that Harambe's Code is considered the first codified law that's associated with our way of life, if you will, or political system. But then, of course, when we look before that, as far as the medical liability, the Hippocratic Oath that was established way back in 1500 BC certainly still has influence today uh, by medical providers and hospitals all across the country. So, uh, look to read that lecture and integrate some of those ideas of that lecture perhaps into your discussion board, and maybe some of the other uh, analysis that you'll do later on in the course. Regarding activities, there is a discussion board posting for week 4. Oh, excuse me. Let me just make sure here. 1 second. I know we had a discussion board posting in week 3. Just make sure it's not hidden. It is hidden. Okay, so there is no discussion board assignment in week 4. Apologize for that. So, really, the only other deliverable there that you have in week 4 is the midterm exam. And I'll give you a little bit of information on the midterm exam. It is worth a whopping 50 points. There are 50 questions. The majority of these questions are are multiple choice. There are a few true or false questions that are sprinkled in there. But again, the majority of the questions are multiple choice questions. The midterm quiz will cover content from chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So please go back. Uh, and I'd say read for argument. Look at your conclusions. Go back to each one of those chapters. Look at the summary and conclusion. If there's some ideas in that conclusion or summary that you still haven't mastered, then go back to the chapter and read that specific section. Some of you also may benefit from just looking at the PowerPoint, assuming that you've already read the reading and you've got a good understanding of it. Just go ahead and review the PowerPoint presentations for each chapter to kind of bring you up to speed and refamiliarize yourself with some of those concepts that are going on in each chapter. Again, most of the questions there in the midterm exam are multiple choice, so you're going to have a good working knowledge and understanding of those topics there before you actually take the quiz. Okay, I think that's enough for the chapter overview and for the module overview. I want to thank you very much again for the hard work that you've put in over the first 3 weeks of the course. At the end of this week, week 4, you will technically be at the halfway point. Please reach out to me with any questions, comments, or concerns, and I look forward to participating with you in the upcoming weeks to close out a very successful course.